We need to come together as a community to solve our most urgent problems.
I'm running quite simply to make things better for children and families in the South End.
Eddie Lin and Adonis Ducksworth both wanted the interim job for Seattle City Council's District 2 when Tammy Morales stepped down suddenly in January.
Kids, culture, and community mean everything to me.
I'll always have an open mind and an open door.
The council appointed caretaker Mark Solomon, but that cleared the way for Ducksworth and Lin to run this fall for the chance to finish the remaining 2 years of Morales' term.
My name's Eddie Lin. I'm running for City Council.
Lin won the primary and brings experience as an assistant city attorney working with the Office of Housing.
Affordability is really the top issue, helping people get off the street, meeting the needs of our most vulnerable.
My name is Adonis Ducksworth. I'm running for City Council.
Ducksworth, a transportation advisor for the mayor, wants to end gun violence and traffic deaths.
I'm out here fighting for children and our families and making things safer for everyone in our neighborhoods and on our streets.
The D2 candidates debate.
For me, it's really about leaning into our progressive values.
This is about working people. This is about jobs.
Eddie Lin and Adonis Ducksworth, who will represent District 2. That's next on City Inside Out. Welcome to City Inside Out. I'm your host, Brian Callanan. Earlier this year, Tammy Morales stepped down from her District 2 City Council seat, just a year after being re-elected. The council appointed Mark Solomon to the job, but he isn't running this November for the opportunity to finish off Morales' term through 2027. 2 city employees made it through the primary. Eddie Lin, an assistant city attorney, and Adonis Ducksworth, a transportation policy advisor for the mayor's office. Both say they'll be champions for the south end of the city, but deciding who wins it is now up to voters in D2. Eddie Lin and Adonis Ducksworth really want to lead Seattle's District 2.
I'm running quite simply to make things better for children and families in the South End.
Too often our Southeast Seattle is kind of an afterthought.
When Tammy Morales stepped down as D2 council member in January, they were both finalists for the 9-month interim job.
I love talking to and getting to know my neighbors.
Kids, culture, and community mean everything to me.
The council appointed Mark Solomon, but he's not running this fall, as Ducksworth and Lin are back for the chance to finish Morales' term through 2027. Lin won the August primary with 47.4% of the vote and is endorsed by the stranger. He's been an assistant city attorney for the past 8 years, working primarily with Seattle's Office of Housing.
I understand how government works, and I want to share that information with the community and also just bring back our community's ideas down to City Hall.
Ducksworth was second in the primary with 29.4% of the vote and is endorsed by the Seattle Times. As a transportation policy advisor for the mayor, he was a prime architect of Seattle's 2024 transportation levy.
You can go to Madison, you can look at the BRT, you can go over to West Seattle Bridge. Those are all things that I worked on with people, with community, and made those things happen. And that's where I feel like I'm a much stronger candidate.
Ducksworth says ending gun violence, housing the unsheltered, and building affordable housing are his top priorities. And as someone who grew up in the Central District of Seattle, he says his deep-rooted connections make him the right choice for D2.
Working on the actual projects, talking to the actual people to make these things happen, I think that's where I'm a lot stronger in my candidacy.
Affordable housing, public safety, and strong public services are among Eddie Lin's top priorities. As the son of a Taiwanese immigrant, he's lived in Beacon Hill since the late 90s and says his work to create coalitions make him the best fit for D2.
We need to come together as a community to solve our most urgent problems, and that's what I bring. I'm a consensus, collaborative team builder.
It's a battle for a new leader in Seattle's District 2.
Our community's at a crossroads here, but we need to give people hope.
Running because I believe everybody deserves safe neighborhoods and safe streets.
And we are very happy to have both candidates for the Seattle City Council's District 2 position here. Eddie Lin, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Also have with us Adonis Ducksworth. Thank you for being here too.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump right into it. We had a coin flip before the show. Adonis, you're going to speak first. An opening statement about why you're running, some of your qualifications. If you could keep it to a minute, please.
Sure.
So I'm Adonis Ducksworth. I'm running for City Council in District 2, and I'm running quite simply because I want to make things better for children and families in South Seattle. I have two daughters, a 15-year-old and 11-year-old, and when my 15-year-old came to me and said she wanted to move because she was worried about the gun violence, that broke my heart. But it was also frustrating because we are not in a position to be able to move anywhere in the city. We couldn't afford to leave Rainier Beach. And so rather than run, I wanted to stand up for my community. And what that means is providing safe neighborhoods, safe roads. I've worked for the city going back to 2012 supporting city projects, doing policy, outreach, and engagement. And so I feel like that puts me in a really strong position, plus my roots in the neighborhood. I grew up in South Seattle, put me in a really good position to represent the district.
Okay, thank you for that. Eddie, if you could, why are you running? Some of your qualifications, 1 minute, please.
Yeah, so Eddie Lin, I currently work at the City Attorney's Office for the past 6 years, have been working full-time with the Office of Housing on affordable housing throughout the city. And the primary reason I'm running is so many families in District 2, South Seattle, really throughout the city are struggling with the high cost of housing, childcare, utilities, groceries, and families are getting pushed out and neighbors are getting pushed out onto the street. So I want to do everything I can to lower costs for families, to help build shelters, get people off the street. I've been on Beacon Hill since 2007, first moved to Seattle in '98, raised our two kids there, got a 16 and 21-year-old, married to a public school teacher, teaches at Mercer Middle School on Beacon. Also the son of an immigrant, and we really see with the federal attacks, we need to do everything we can locally to protect our community. And finally, we need to tax wealthy corporations to pay for our essential needs. The wealthy folks in our community just got one of the largest tax cuts in history from the feds, but we're going to see impacts locally to cuts to Medicaid and Medicare and education. And so we need to do everything we can locally to shore up our budget.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to try to talk about some of the things that might differentiate you as candidates. And Adonis, when I was talking to you on the campaign trail a couple weeks ago, you were telling me that you're really proud of your years of experience in D2, and maybe that's a separation between you and your opponent. You have a lot of these connections here that have led to building a number of transportation projects, which is your background. Can you talk about that difference in experience and why you think that's important?
Sure. So growing up in the neighborhood, I developed a lot of relationships with a lot of different community leaders, community organizations, and just neighbors. And so when I started working for the Seattle Department of Transportation, coming through with these big capital projects that are very disruptive to a lot of neighborhoods, I heard from those folks of like, this is hurting us. And I would be the person on the ground knocking on the doors, talking to the elders, talking to the leaders of, we have this project coming, and how can we make this project work for you? And I think that is one of the differences between me and Eddie's a great guy. I think he'll represent the district well if this doesn't work out for me.
Okay.
So just put that out there. But, I think one of the big differences here is that, I've been on the ground working to make these things happen and using my connections to the community to really get the benefits, not only the safety benefits for these road projects, but bring the benefits back to the people. And one of the big things that we worked on was back in 2015, 2016, we worked on the 23rd Avenue project.
Right.
And we were able to get businesses money and stop displacement in real time while we had one of the biggest projects happening in the Central District. And a lot of those businesses were able to stay through the construction, and now they get to enjoy the benefits of that construction with new sidewalks, a safer road, trees, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Eddie, I want to talk about your experience. You've been working in the City Attorney's Office since 2017. You've been a liaison to Seattle's Office of Housing there. I want people to learn about that experience for you, your connection to District 2, I guess, and how that makes you a better candidate for this job.
Sure. Yeah, so I basically have a real estate legal background, worked at a large law firm, went to Seattle U for grad school. I was at Perkins Coie for 8 years before joining the City Attorney's Office. And yeah, with housing affordability being the top issue for so many of our neighbors, understanding how development works and the barriers to building more housing, we are in an enormous housing shortage, and we were the fastest growing city for a decade. And what that meant is housing costs have continued to rise. And there's a statistic that when rents go up $100, homelessness increases by 9%. And so, the work that I do with Office of Housing is really good and meaningful, and we've grown our investments, but the need has continued to outgrow our ability to build affordable housing. And so that's why we need to do a lot more on the market rate side on social housing. Another thing that I've been deeply involved in public school advocacy. I was the legislative chair for Seattle Council PTSA and have been very involved in our children's PTAs all along. And I think we can do a lot more to meet the needs of our youth and families by coordinating between City Council and the school board, between the city and Seattle Public Schools, and look forward to working on that. Especially in District 2, there's a lot of funding that comes to our Southeast Seattle schools through the Families Education Preschool and Promise Levy, and that's going to be up on the ballot in November.
Yeah.
And City Council has an oversight role in that, and I want
right.
to make sure that those investments are well spent in District 2.
Eddie, let me come back to you here. You were the lead vote getter in the primary, 47.4% of the vote. Your campaign's raised about $131,000 as of mid-September. I'd like for you to tell us about your top 3 endorsers, if you could, and what message you think that should send to voters.
Yeah, I would say my top 3 endorsers are UFC W3000, represents the largest private union in the state. Senator Rebecca Saldana, who's an incredible advocate for working families and labor and immigrants, and The Stranger, one of the 2 big papers and the progressive news paper in our region.
So the grocery workers, the senator, and The Stranger. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think that says?
For me, it's really about leaning into our progressive values, leading with compassion, about affordability, and again, taxing the wealthiest in our community. We have the 2nd most per capita millionaires anywhere in the country, and so we have enormous wealth and resources, but that's only getting to some in our community, and others are being left out. And so that's where city government really needs to step up, and that's what I'm hearing at doors when I talk to neighbors. They want to make sure that we're taxing wealthy corporations instead of fixed income seniors to pay for our essential needs.
Okay, thank you. Adonis, you were 2nd in the primary with 29.4% of the vote. Your campaign has raised just over $158,000 as of mid-September here. Tell us about the top 3 endorsements with your campaign and what you think voters should understand about that.
Sure. So I would say the top 3 endorsers of the campaign, Seattle Building Trades, Liuna 242, and the Seattle Times as well. I also want to give a shout out to the Teamsters. I'm in Protect 17. I've been a union member of Protect 17 since 2016 when I became permanent here at the city. And even in my time in the mayor's office, I was out of class in the mayor's office from 2023 till April of this year, but I still continue to pay my union dues. Okay. Very loyal to the union. And I think what this says about the campaign, this is about working people. This is about jobs. This is about, as Eddie said, taxing the wealthy, but also putting money back in the pockets of the people who most need it and our workers. And so I'm running on a campaign of, really like empowering people, getting people jobs, because we know that one of the best ways for people to get out of the situations that they're in, whether they're in poverty or they're just in a situation they don't want, is education and employment. Yeah. And I believe the unions and the trades are a path to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, too. Adonis, let me stick with you. You've also been talking about ending gun violence and making that a top issue for your campaign. Your website points this out. District 2 makes up 12% of the Seattle population, but accounts for more than 30% of the gun violence in the city, unfortunately. What is your plan to change those numbers if you get this job? And also, if you could add in, what's your position on adding some more surveillance cameras to the city? There's been a lot of talk about this at the city level, and the Chinatown ID neighborhood is where these cameras were going. It's a crime reduction tool they're talking about. But let's talk about public safety, gun violence, and those surveillance cameras, please.
Yes. Well, first, I just want to say, we moved to Rainier Beach in 2015, and within a couple of weeks of living in Rainier Beach, we heard shots fired. And if you've ever heard shots fired, it is pretty jarring, it's pretty traumatic, and it's surprising because it comes out of nowhere. But when it's not just a one-time deal, when it's every couple weeks, every couple months, and we're going to our electeds and saying, hey, what can we do about this? And nothing continues to be done. When people are murdered in our neighborhood, and these are black and brown kids that are getting murdered in our neighborhood, it just breaks my heart. And so I come back to when my kid says, I want to move because I'm scared, that's heartbreaking. That is so heartbreaking, and so that's why I'm running to end this. So the root causes of gun violence, we know, it's economic inequality. It is years and years and years of trauma, disinvestment, and it's also, these kids, a lot of these kids and these young people, they don't have anywhere to turn. They don't have anywhere to go. With our housing crisis, a lot of families have had to move and leave, and within the housing world, these families are destabilized.
Yeah.
They're completely destabilized. And so what we really need to do with gun violence is we need to focus on prevention, we need to focus on support, and we need to focus on diversion. And those are the types of things that I want to bring to South Seattle, that I want to bring throughout the rest of the city.
And can you touch on those surveillance cameras too,
Yes,
please?
yes.
What are your thoughts on those?
So I understand the current council, members of the current council are trying to be responsive, and they're trying to do everything that they can to curb some of the things that are happening, like in Chinatown CID, Little Saigon. But cameras are not the way to go. We're trying to build trust with our communities, and especially what's happening at the federal level with ICE just breaking up families, illegally arresting people, and really coming after our city. This is not the way to go. Cameras are not the way to go right now.
All right. Eddie, I think you might share some of those concerns. Let's talk about surveillance cameras and your approach to public safety, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with Adonis more. Now is not the time to be adding surveillance when Trump is not only threatening, but actually taking over police departments. And so we need to be extremely careful about the information and data that we're collecting, and we should be looking at turning off cameras instead of adding more surveillance to our community. Our immigrant communities, but really our LGBTQIA communities, women and others who are seeking reproductive health care are fearful and are being targeted. And so we need to do whatever we can to protect our community. And when in terms of gun violence, I'd say, it's a complicated nationwide issue, but we are absolutely feeling it more here in District 2 than other parts. And so it's many different things. I mean, it's about having safe gun storage, getting guns off the streets. Unfortunately, we are just awash in guns in our community. So what we can do to educate and get people to lock them up is critical. But yeah, we need to give our youth hope, get them connected to good jobs. So thankfully in the upcoming FEP levy, there's going to be apprenticeship funding for the first time, and I'm super excited to work with the trade unions and other, because we have a lot of great jobs, both tech and blue collar healthcare jobs that we should be connecting our youth with. They need mental health and social workers in our schools. And we need dedicated funding to some of the gun violence prevention programs. Too often that funding is sporadic and intermittent, and we need to be building long-term relationships with our youth. Okay. And for these organizations like Choose 180 and Community Passageways to hire staff to build those long-term relationships, they need sort of secure, dedicated funding, not reapplying for it every year and not knowing if they're going to be able to pay their staff.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to stick with you, Eddie, and talk about affordable housing, major platform in your campaign. Your website mentions how higher costs are driving people out living in D2, forcing small businesses to close, putting a strain on public schools too. What are your plans to try to change that situation? There's the multi-billion-dollar question here, I guess. How do you change that situation if you're elected?
Yeah, absolutely. We just need to make it a lot easier to build, kind of in all parts of the city. For too long, we've had single-family neighborhoods. We no longer have single-family zoning, but for many, many years, 75% of our city was exclusionary. And we need a more integrated city, more integrated between homeowners and renters. We should not be putting all the density on major arterials. So we need to make it easier to build all types of housing throughout the city, we need denser walkable neighborhoods, and to transition away from our over-reliance on vehicles as our primary mode of transportation. I live in a single-family neighborhood, and I use a vehicle too much to get around town. And we need to make it easy and safe and reliable for folks to get around by bus, by transit, walking, biking. That's how we're going to make it more affordable, safer. It's better for public health. And as climate change is upon us, there's really no other option. So the quicker we make this transition to having more dense, walkable neighborhoods, the sooner we're going to see benefits for our entire community.
Yeah. And skateboardable neighborhoods, too. I know that's the
for sure.
big part of what's happening here.
Yes.
Adonis, I wanted to talk to you about this because affordable housing, of course, is important to you, too. Your campaign points out that the average rental cost for a one-bedroom in Seattle is almost $2,300 a month. How are you going to tackle this issue if you're elected?
Sure. Yeah, and going back to what I said in the intro, you know, when my kid comes to me and said they want to move, and as a parent, as somebody who's working in the city, who's been working in the city, I can't just up and move. We can't just up and move because it's too expensive. We couldn't sell our house and buy another house in Seattle. And out on the campaign trail, this is the same experience of a lot of other families in the district, right? And so, you know, we need to build more housing in more places. Period. We need to build more in more places, and we need to make it easier to build. And so what that means for me, and what I think that means for a lot of folks, is we need the land, we need the money to do it, and we need to make permitting easier. So lower the risk and the cost and make things a lot easier for developers to build. I'm fortunate to be endorsed by the Affordable Housing Council, so they believe in the campaign, but when it comes to the land, we need to be zoning, and we'll have the opportunity in 2026 to provide the zoning, to put the zoning in to all of these neighborhood centers, and I hope we pass as many neighborhoods. I hope this council passes as many neighborhood centers.
Working on the comprehensive plan, right?
Right now as they can. But we'll have the opportunity to zone for abundant housing all over the city. And so that's the first step. And we need the money. And this is where we need to really look at, we're in a city with tremendous wealth that are not paying their fair share. And so progressive revenue to help fund our housing and our affordable housing. And when we talk about affordable housing, you know, we saw the thing in the newspaper about, you know, market rate and affordable housing kind of coming into line. But really, the conversation that I want to bring up to the forefront is at 30% and below. Those are the folks that need
people making 30% of the area median income.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's where the dollars come in. And with permitting, we need to look at all options, whether it's hiring more workers in SDCI or looking at other opportunities to really speed up that permitting process so that we can get permits, you know, approved and in time, because that costs our builders money.
Yeah,
time is money. When time is money, and when it's too expensive to build, they go build in other places and they don't build here.
Let me jump back, and I'll stick with you, Adonis. A related issue of homelessness here. Seattle Times reported earlier this year the city has removed more than 8,000 tent encampments over the past 2 years. That's a record amount. Yet, we're dealing with a record population of people who are homeless, including District 2. We actually took some photos of a pretty large encampment in D2 in Rainier Valley heading out toward Mount Baker. So, Adonis, what do these different numbers say to you in terms of where homelessness is going? What do you plan to do about this issue if you're elected?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is, you know, as somebody who, you know, my dad served his time in the military, and he did what he was supposed to do in the military, and he got out and he fell into substance abuse disorder. He couldn't stay in our home, and he ended up on the street. And it was heartbreaking for me as someone who traveled around the city as a kid to see my dad down on 3rd Avenue. He eventually died of his alcoholism, and that's heartbreaking. And so these folks that we see on the street today, we have to remember these are people's dads, there's people's moms, they're their brothers, their sisters. These are people you went to high school with. So we have to treat them with dignity. And what that means is, as a city, it's our responsibility to help them with quality treatment, quality shelter, build more tiny homes. That's how we get out. That's how we help them get off the street. We were at Real Change about a month ago, and asking folks, you know, we just go back downtown, is what they would say.
Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah.
Because the shelters are no better than the streets.
Yeah. Real Change, the newspaper that deals with homeless issues, et cetera.
The shelters are no better than the streets. The options we have for treatment are just not that great. So I'm going to go back down to the streets. So that's what we as a city, it's our responsibility to do that. And let's get folks help they need, so that they can get reconnected with their families.
Thank you. Eddie, some thoughts on homelessness if you're elected? How do you tackle this huge problem?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's not just about numbers. These are people's lives. This is about Adonis's father. And this is about, like, I think about my older brother who also struggled with alcoholism for decades. And he would have been on the street, but for my mom housing him for decades. And so, yeah, when I see people on the street, I think about my brother. These are our sisters and siblings and parents and children. And, you know, not everybody on the street is struggling with a mental health or drug addiction or alcoholism. We have a lot of people that are just can't afford the rent,
That's right.
that are working. But we do have people that are struggling with those things, and we absolutely need to expand our shelter options, our tiny home villages. And when I'm talking to neighbors, you see people living in tents on the street. Everybody agrees, let's get them into shelter. Let's get them into a tiny home village where they can have a roof over their head, some stability, and get connected to services. And we're paying for this either way. But it's going to be a lot more efficient and effective if we can pay to get people housed, to get people services, rather than just pushing people around. When we see or we hear about sweeps in Soto or downtown, I'm talking to neighbors on Beacon Hill, and they see people just getting pushed down to Beacon Hill. Yeah. And at the end of the day, just pushing it from neighborhood to neighborhood is not solving the problems. And the public is rightfully frustrated and upset and wants to see us be bold and to make real progress on this. And so we need to do more shelters. We need to raise new revenues to pass the capital gains tax, to increase the corporate payroll tax to fund our essential needs.
Thank you. I wonder if we could sneak in a 30-second version before the final statement here of something we haven't talked about. There's all these big headlines. Is there something about your campaign that we haven't talked about, Eddie, that you really want to let people know about? If you can keep it 30 seconds, that'd be great.
Well, just briefly talked about it, but I just want to double down on the role of public education. Our public schools are really struggling for a number of different reasons, but partially enrollment is way down because families are getting pushed out. We have some of the lowest birth rates and the lowest number of children per capita in the city. At the same time, we have the second highest rate of private school enrollment in the city, and so we're becoming a city of haves and have-nots. Our schools are deeply segregated, and that's because our neighborhoods are segregated. Okay. So there's so much we can do around our urban planning that will not only benefit neighborhoods, it will also benefit our public schools.
Thank you. Adonis, maybe a headline that we haven't talked about that's important to you, an issue that's important to you.
Sure. So we talked about, I think we're both in agreement that the folks at the higher income levels and the corporations at the higher income levels should definitely be paying their fair share. But when we talk about putting money back in people's pockets, one of the things we know is most effective when it comes to outcomes for folks is actual cash in people's pockets. And so one of the things that I'm pretty excited about that I want to talk more about is actually putting dollars in people's pockets through guaranteed income. There was a pilot in 2024 through the Workforce Development Council of King County, Seattle-King County, and they saw great impacts or great outcomes of putting $500 in people's pockets over the course of 10 months. We saw more people going to work. They had better health outcomes. It was really fascinating to see, and we've seen this happen in California. And so this is one of the things that I definitely want to champion if I am elected.
Thank you. So thank you both. It's time for a wrap up here. Adonis, a thought to voters, a final thought here, why they should choose you to lead District 2. Can you keep it to less than a minute, please?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, just super grateful to be in this position running for City Council, to represent the district that raised me. With the experience that I bring from the work that I've done with the DOT, the outreach, the engagement, and my experience with policy, I do feel like I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one. And I really run on strong values of family and community. Those are the types of things that I'm running on, and I hope those are the values I can bring to City Council.
Great. If you could wrap us up, a final word here, Eddie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank Adonis for coming here. I want to thank you for having us, a longtime fan of the Seattle Channel.
There we go.
I want to thank some of the other candidates that ran in the primary, Jeannie Chun and Jamie Fackler, who ran great races. For me, this is about empowering the community. District 2 is an amazing, Southeast Seattle, wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And going out and talking to neighbors, we know what to do to protect our community. It's about empowering the community, and it's not about me that I have all the answers, but I am a strong listener, and I understand how city government works, working in the city attorney's office for the past 8 years, and I just want to be a strong voice and to uplift our needs, our collective needs in District 2, and I'd be honored to earn the support of voters down in South Seattle.
Thank you for that, and we will be right back. What are people saying online about the race for Seattle City Council District 2? One person writes, "The clear choice for D2 is Eddie Lin. In the midst of a never-ending housing crisis, we need someone who can get stuff done." Another comments, "Adonis has a bold vision for our city and is dedicated to bringing accountable leadership to City Hall." We'd like to know what you think. Send us an email at contact@seattlechannel.org or find us on social media. Great to have that input. Very thankful to Eddie Lin, Adonis Ducksworth, and we will see you next time on City Inside Out.